I've taken a long just before 8 o'clock candle at this 240 order blocks 50% level. It's a level that has held previously. We price found strong bullish displacement from this level and came back down at 1.31. As you can see, this 50% level previously held on the 240 time frame and then retested it multiple times on the 1 hour time frame here before finding this bullish resistance, bullish momentum, and then during NFP price has tanked all the way back down to that level, and then we've got a sort of accumulation going on. I ideally would like to see price come down and take out these liquidity before looking for that entry. However, I've gotten in slightly early. It's also the fact that we formed this range around here, and the fact that we tried to hold this range at first right there, failed, and then took out all the liquidity that rested below these lows, where there would have been a lot of potential buyers trying to go up. I've taken out liquidity with this strong, sharp, bearish run, and we have, I took an entry after seeing this order block at this, around this level, and now we've tested the low of that 60-minute, which is what I should have expected for price to come down to first. However, I've given myself enough breathing rooms with my stop loss at 1.3093. And ideally I want to take my target at least at the start of this order block. So let's see how price plays out. And also I'm only risking around 0.2% of my account on this, mainly because of the fact that it's an aggressive entry against the trend, because I expect price to pull back into this range and provide some kind of an entry for me later on during the day or during London session. Could happen anytime. So that trade hit stops. Obviously I was a little bit early on that trade. However, as price has printed these candles, this doji candle followed by this bearish engulfing candle, I entered as this candle is printing. I want to put my stops at least at 87, and then I want to take my targets again at this order block. I'll probably move my stop loss to break even once price goes above this high, just because the momentum is quite bearish. But as you can see, right, we've come down to these lows, tapped into these fair value gaps, held, tapped into the low of this fair value gap, and also held. Well, currently holding. I wouldn't say we've already held that level, but it's the fact that we've at this order block, 240 order block, this 240 order block, where we've found support multiple times, and it's the way how prices approach that level as well for me, especially after this small accumulation and this expansion. I predict price might pull back into this range to find some resistance for it to push back down to my initial drawn liquidity, which is down to these lows at 1.3075. So let's see how that plays out. The only reason this trade was a good short-term trade was because it took out the 60-minute equal lows and pushed deeper into a fair value gap just below a peak, or just below a bottom. So on the 15-minute, we can see, right, this is the 60-minute equal low that price took out. We have these equal lows at this 240 order block, and then price came deep into this fair value gap, which is something I would like to see in price, where price potentially could find a support. And this is what happens. Price finds small support there during London session and pushes up into the mid section of this range. Ideally it would have been better if price had not dropped so far away from this small range that was formed just before London and just at the start of London session. That was one of the reasons that I didn't expect price to fully reverse or find a strong bullish momentum. And also we have another sell side buy side liquidity right here on the 240 and the 60-minute, where I was predicting price to find stronger support. So yeah, because of that, although the entry location not the best, it's better than the first one. So yeah, I took the trade off at above these highs at this fair value gap start, which is in discount of this range, or the premium of this range, which also lines up with the bearish fair value gap, like fair value gap 50% level. So yeah, I've gotten out that trade. Could have gone for that 618. However, I'm happy with the target above those highs at above that 50% level at around 1.3106. What gave me more confidence to hold that trade was the fact that, so after this candle printed, we got this engulfing candle, and I was expecting this to be the bullish engulfing candle where I entered. However, that turned into a bearish pin bar. Then we got this small bearish candle which was followed by this strong bullish engulfing candle, which is the candle that I was anticipating my entry candle to be. And because I saw that, I was a lot more confident holding my trade up to these highs. And my stops were placed below these fair value gaps, which on the 5 minutes is clearer, below these fair value gaps. And yeah, right now I anticipate price to continue. It can do anything. We've formed this, could potentially be an order block, so we could take out the highs of this order block, hold this bearish fair value gap, and then find resistance and then drop down. I've taken another long at this buy side liquidity, but just above my drawn liquidity, because this is towards the end of London session, so just before 5 a.m, so just before 10 a.m. UK time. I anticipate price to find support below this buy side liquidity, where we've seen loads of where there's loads of liquidity, and price will to eventually reach drawn liquidity, especially the fact that price approached this level since it's opened this week and displaced down. We're putting this order block just before the lows taken out with this pin bar, and then now we're printing this bearish engulfing candle, which is a kind of a sign that I want to see price coming into a buy side sell side liquidity. We came down, paused just before the liquidity was taken with an aggressive move down, and then put in this bullish engulfing candle that closed above the bearish engulfing candle, bearish fair value gap, which turned into an inverse fair value gap for me, and I entered at these levels. I've got my stops below this low, and targets I will take along the way. I have my stops at 9 pips, actually 1.3078. Maybe I want to put it down to 1.3075, but I do anticipate price. I have my stop at 1.3078 actually right there, and I do still anticipate price to find market structure shift on this 5 minute pullback and then continue higher. This also was based on the fact that we have small divergence with EU. As you can see, we started to make, we made this lower low right here on pound dollar, whereas on EU we were making this lower high. We failed to make a lower low, and it's coming at a time just before London close, going into New York session, where I anticipate some kind of a manipulation before price continues in its direction, which has been bearish for pound dollar and euro dollar so far. So yeah, I do predict price to find some kind of a support. Maybe it will reach this drawn liquidity first on pound dollar, and then push up during New York, and then push higher, and find resistance eventually to continue lower. I've taken a half a position off at this high as price reached the 50% off this range. With my entry and spreads and everything, it was around 0.75 up to that level, so only around 7 pips. However, I still expect a deeper retracement, so I'm going to let the trade run. But we could also get a pullback down to this drawn liquidity before New York session, and then we might find support there. I'm honestly not sure, so anything can happen. I'd rather get out with some profit right now than continue to wait for price to reach these highs. Before I entered this trade here, I entered another trade as price was coming down and tapping into the inverse fair value gap at 3085, right, literally just here, with my stops again at 78, and that would have been a much better entry, but I entered with the wrong position size, essentially entering a 0.1% or 1% of the overall position size instead of the entire 100%. So because of that, I had to re-enter, and as I re-entered, I got in with a slightly negative risk reward entry. So instead of 1.3R, it was 0.7R, 5R. I've taken the rest of the trades off at the 618 level, mainly because I am going against the trend, and I would much rather get out in profit than be negative for the day. I still anticipate price to put in a bullish engulfing candle, or put in multiple bullish candles in the next couple of hours before it finds some kind of a resistance at this 50% to between 618 or even higher, and then drop back down during New York session. That's one prediction, but it could also easily come down to the drawn liquidity before the New York session and find some kind of a support. It's never really given, so I'd much rather get out in profit than continue to hold this. This is a much better entry because it takes out a buy side liquidity on the 240 and the 60-minute before reaching the drawn liquidity before New York, where I anticipated price to find some support, and price found support at that level. And then between London and New York, so between 10 a.m. UK time and 12 p.m. London time, price pushed down, took out that drawn liquidity that I was predicting price to come to. Didn't want to enter there because I was watching the 60-minute fair value gap below that, which eventually price comes down to after taking out these highs. For the fourth trade of the day on pound dollar, I have been anticipating price to come to this equal lows on 240, these below this swing, which is above a daily time frame fair value gap right there. We also have the 240 fair value gap, and also there's a 1 hour fair value gap just below that. Ideally, I would like to see that 1 hour fair value gap get tapped into, but we might not get that because there's a lot of liquidity resting below these lows at that, with the daily time frame fair value gap being there, and because it's 11:30 UK time, so this is 6 a.m. New York time, we might potentially see a manipulation before price pushes back down. So yeah, we might actually tap into the daily time frame fair value gap. Ideally, I want to see price tap that before looking for any entries, because another good thing about this trade is we had a market structure shift there, failed to hold. We had another market structure shift there, which failed to follow through. Although I did get an entry there, I got out halfway through this range. Same here, I got an entry, early entry, and then I got out halfway through that range as well. And right now, I anticipate price to take out this low, the daily time fair value gap. I like the fact that we've got this pause candle that's just been printed, and I also like the fact that a bearish pin bar, green pin bar, or you can say a bullish pin bar, and a bearish engulfing candle, which would be a red candle. And after this, I anticipate the next candle to be a bullish candle, maybe take out these highs up here. So because of that, I will be taking an aggressive trade, but I also want to see further confirmation. Ideally, I want to see a few more candles here, potentially consolidate, and then if we just get a drop, a significant drop to this 1 hour time from fair value gap, I will be looking to enter right there, and then our target will be up here, at least 221. But if we start to displace higher from this level, this daily time fair value gap at 1.3075, then I will look for shorting opportunities between until like New York session, where we come into a highs somewhere and start to displace, to look for another shorting opportunity. We also form a channel. If anyone knows, I trade channels, and this is a perfect channel that's been setting up. Normally I would wait for the channel to play out, and then I'll look for a market structure shift to close above these highs on the 15-minute and then enter on the pullback, which led me to take way too many stop losers. So because of that, I started to take aggressive entries at the lower channels, only at a specific time period and only at a specific area. So, and also only in a specific way that price comes to that area. Because of that, I do predict this price will find support, at least take out these highs, and I want my targets to be at that level. Price found support before it reached that 60-minute fair value gap where I was looking to enter. After price came down to, let's just get rid of this. After price came down to the drawn liquidity that I had below these equal lows on the 240, just above the daily time frame fair value gap, which is also above that 240 fair value gap, 1 hour fair value gap, which is right there. I was anticipating, some kind of a retracement back into this zone, and we have started to retrace back up, especially right now when, I was anticipating price to retrace back between 6, somewhere between 5 and 7 a.m. New York time, so somewhere between 11 and 1 p.m. UK time, and it's almost half one right now, and the move has already happened. I could have taken, or the entry that I normally would like to see is something like this: pause candle followed by a sharp move down, which leaves a small gap to form a bullish inverse fair value gap, and then we got these 2 pin bars, and then we made the move up. Ideally, I would have liked to see that move down at 1.3072 level and then look for a long, but we didn't, and we moved up, and I'm not really interested in going long anymore. But I'm also not interested in going short at this level because we've reached a drawn liquidity, so I don't know what price is going to do until there's further confirmation. If we come back down to the 60-minute fair value gap at 1.3072 level, I will look for a long. like I was predicting, price came to that 60-minute fair value gap below that draw on liquidity, which is the equal low on 240, and also the start of daily time frame fair value gap, and found support during London close when I stopped looking at trading opportunities. And then we found support and price pushed up all the way up to this high. Essentially, we formed a range and price took out the highs of that range. I saw this in live as trade was playing out. I started doing other things because it's later in the afternoon, and I saw this play out. I wanted to take an entry, but price had already started moving in my direction, so I didn't want to enter late. And then I saw this bullish momentum kick in 2 candles, and then I started seeing I was going to place my entry here because, you know, we formed some bullish fair value gaps, and I anticipated or predicted that price might hold that fair value gap, but I didn't place my entry mainly because it was late in the afternoon, and also I'd already taken 3 trades today and I was in profit, and I didn't want to give any of that back. And especially after I started seeing this bearish candles close below this bullish fair value gaps, I closed my computer and went away. And then later when I came back, lo and behold, we held that 50% off that 60-minute fair value gap one more time, and then found strong displacement all the way back up to these highs. Good predictions, because I was anticipating price to come down to that 60-minute fair value gap and find some support. It did, however, just was not at the right time. There were bearish opportunities here, right, just after London, but this is 5-minute time frame. I was anticipating price maybe would come up to these highs, but we created these relative equal highs below this fair value gap, tanked, and I was anticipating price to come to these fair value gaps on the 60-minute on a pullback before entry, before New York session. During London session, it didn't. We closed below this low, formed this order block, closed below again, and just didn't get the deep enough pullback that I wanted to see, and then just continued to make new lower lows until we reached that draw on liquidity. Then again, one final pullback to take our liquidity and then push back down that, but I wouldn't have taken a continuation trade after that draw on liquidity had been taken anyway. So yeah, that was pound dollar for today.